Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have Silver Bullet Mines. It trades on the OTC under the symbol SBMCF and on the TSX-V under the symbol SBMI, and is an overnight success, 10 years in the making. It expects to be in silver production at its Buckeye Silver Mine near Globe, Arizona in Q1 2022, to be followed by the McMorris Mine within 24 months. Silver Bullet Mines is in the pre-production sweet spot. Please welcome its CEO, Peter Clausi. Welcome.
Hi, Anna. Nice to see you again.
Happy to have you back, Peter. Floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I was here in December, and I like telling this story because it starts with people saying, no way. And after I tell the story, they're enthused about it. Two small corrections. I'm not the CEO. I'm a director and the VP of Capital Markets. John Carter is our CEO. Secondly, we were aiming for production in Q1, but like many people, we got hung up in Long Beach. Some of our equipment was simply lost. For 70 days, we were told, you're in Long Beach, we just don't know where. So we missed the Q1 production date, and that's been pushed back as a result. We should be in production in the next 4 to 8 weeks. Then we're going to go up to the Washington mine in Idaho. That'll be in production in about 8 weeks. So within the next 8 weeks, we are putting 2 silver mines in production. We're doing it old school. No resource estimate, no PEA, no feasibility study. Silver is a different animal. It's not like gold where you're chasing a vein this big. Currently where we are, our vein is about 11 feet wide. We've been pulling samples off it. The last round of assays we released went up to 700 ounces of silver per ton. For context, Bonanza silver is generally regarded to be around 30 ounces of silver per ton, or 1 kilogram. And here we are pulling 700. It's an astonishing, lovely story. We own our own mill. Like any responsible producer, we have our own assay lab. And we will be producing real silver in the next 4 to 8 weeks. And what do you do with the silver? You call the smelter in Globe, Arizona. You say, I've got 100,000 ounces of silver grading 92%. They send a truck, they do some sampling, they write you a check for around 90% of the gross value of your shipment, and you get the 10% adjustment in about 45 days after they process the material. I tell people we're like a shoe store. We make our own shoes, we sell our own shoes. And being in this part of the mining industry is no different. We are not an explorer, we are not a developer. We are a processor and a producer of silver. Back to John Carter, our CEO. If we were an explorer, odds are John wouldn't be the CEO. That's not his skill set. But the man has built close to 200 mills and processing facilities around the world. This is exactly his skill set. We're fortunate to have him, and he knows exactly how to build all those little gadgets and doohas like Lego that form a processing facility. If you go to our website, silverbulletmines.com, you will see pictures of the mill site being built. Last September, it was an empty field. And in about 4 weeks, it will be a producing mill. And it's fascinating to see the evolution as the field team has built it up bit by bit. Conveyor belt, Falcon, concentrator, the ball mill itself. And for those of you who don't know, it's called a ball mill because there are steel balls inside. And they bash the hell out of the material until it falls through the mesh at the bottom that's the size we want. So that's the Buckeye down in Arizona. I could go on for hours on it, but I'll give you the short version today. In Idaho, we have the Washington mine. It was offered to us in November of 2020. As long as we bought it by the end of December 2020, we made that happen. We have a lot of historical information on that mine. There's 13,000 feet of underground workings. The people that worked it back in the late 1800s and the 1900s and the 1930s made very detailed maps and kept very good descriptions of the mine. Now, just a humble lawyer, not a geologist, so if I get this wrong, you geos, don't write me nasty notes. The gold and the silver were set down in 2 different geologic eras. The only reason that matters is the geologists could walk in and look at the ore and say, that's the gold, we want that. That's the silver at 70 cents an ounce, we don't want that. And they mapped out and blocked out the silver in place underground at the Washington mine. There probably was an intention to come back and get it later. They never did. We're going to go get that. The historical reports, which predate 43-101, so the usual caveats and warnings apply, would indicate there's 3 million ounces of silver just inside the adit. So our plan is fairly simple. We're going to bring the adit and all the entryway up to current safety standards. So that would be bolting and netting and whatever timbering needs to be done. Hire a custom contract miner to go in, pull out, call it 2,000 tons of ore. There's a mill 3-hour drive away. Haul the ore to the mill, have it custom milled, and pick up a check from the mill. Go back, do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. It's a very low risk operation for us. It doesn't take a lot of financial or human resources. You just have to keep an eye on the contract miner and the mill. And every few months, we'll be picking up a check from the mill. I like that operation. You know, it's the old make money while you sleep type of thing. And that we'll be doing. Then we're back in Arizona. After the Buckeye is turning, and after we're pulling money out of the Washington, we'll go back to a mine called the McMorris. The McMorris is just over the hill from the Buckeye. We started the Buckeye first because it's the easiest. Low-hanging fruit. Start generating revenue, start generating cash. Risk mitigation. Once you're generating cash, then you can take on the bigger apple. And the bigger apple here is the McMorris Mine. It covers about 21% of the surface area of the entire property. And so it's a big piece of the property. It's also a former producer. In 1987, an economic geologist did a study of it. Now, again, it predates 43-101, so the usual caveats apply. He worked out under some pretty harsh assumptions as to recovery rates, mineralization rates, that the McMorris then, at $450 gold and $7 silver, was worth $480-some million USD. I did what you're going to do when you read the report. You're going to take it, import it to a spreadsheet, convert it to current currency, current commodity values, and then I discounted that by 10%, and it came to about $1.9 billion of gross economic value. So you can see why we're excited about getting to the McMorris. I figure it'll take between 2 and 3 years to get the McMorris in operation. After that, we will likely attack the next former producer on our property called the Silver Sevens. One of our problems is that we have 3 other producers, and we have to decide which one of those 3 we will attack next. It will likely be the Silver Sevens, but I can't say that with any certainty. John, our CEO, likes to talk about then opening the next mine. But as I've told him, don't get too excited about that, because if we have 3 mines up in operation, each of them spinning out cash, we are too attractive a takeover target for one of the intermediates. Somebody with a big checkbook is going to show up and make us an offer we can't refuse. And that's quite typical in the mining industry once you get into production. I'm quite happy with our team. We have a good smattering of different skill sets on the board, from financial to geologic to capital markets. We have a small float of only 63 million shares out, of which 29 million are in escrow. We've done 2 financings for the company. One, our target was 3 million. We clocked in at 6.2. The stock was up about 40%, so we decided to do a quick top-up financing of $500,000 and hit 2.7 million. It's a good story that's being extremely well received because it's de-risked and the blue sky upside is almost limitless. So I could do this for hours and hours on end and get into the real detail, but those are the highlights of the project. Near-term cash flow from 2 sources. We own our own mill, put the 3rd one into production, and then get taken out by a much larger intermediate.
Pete, are you ready for questions?
Always.
All right. Davis Getty asks, the Buckeye Mill test run is still going to be with low grade and or tailings. Is that correct?
With low grade material. Why waste the good stuff on this test run? And it takes a while to get everything organized, get the conveyor belts running at the right speed, get the Falcon spinning, concentrating table all working at the right speed, the ball mill turning. So why waste the good stuff on that?
Good point. Aura Francis asks, can you tell us about your production time frame and your growth rate?
Well, without a PEA or a feasibility study, 43101 puts some limits on us as to what we can say. I can tell you that they've traced the main vein for 2 miles at surface, and where we currently are, it's 11 feet across. Now, there's no way it's going to be 11 feet across for the whole length of the vein. It's going to pinch and swell, as all veins do. But we expect to be in production out of that vein for a considerable period of time.
And Ernest Sherman asks if you're experiencing any delay or other issues due to supplies and or workers.
Pandemic is a pain in the ass for all of us. We've got delayed in Long Beach. Rebar is up 300% year over year. Shipping used to be $1 a mile. Now it's $5 a mile. The fuel, and diesel, of course, is the fuel that runs the world, and diesel's up. So yes, we have experienced pain points on getting material and the extra cost of it. Generally, our human resources is good. Sourcing one group of electricians took us a little bit of time, but that has been achieved, and the motor control center should be wired up within the 4 to 5 week period. And that's the brains of the whole thing that gets the conveyor belt spinning and the ball mill turning.
Marcel Santiago asks what majors are producing around you, and if any, how close are they?
I can see into, not Rio Tinto, another major. If you stand on one of our hills, you can see into their open pit. The majors are all around us doing copper porphyries.
And Sylvia Potter asks, first of all, she says the plan seems great and congratulations on getting it implemented. Do you need to raise money to commence? And if so, how much? And how do you plan to raise it?
We don't need, assuming everything works out, we have a plan for, let's say it's 1 to 10. If the plan even works out to 4, we have enough capital to do what we need to do. That's why we did this quick top-up round and raised $2.7 million. The next cash to come into the company would be through the exercise of the 50-cent warrants. So to make that happen, the stock would have to be around 65, 70 cents, but that would put another $5 million into the company treasury.
Well, a follow-up question from Felix Sullivan. When do you expect to be generating cash and revenue? And do you have a time frame for profitability?
Profitability is a nebulous term because that depends on how much money we put back into the properties. So let's do free cash flow, which is a better indicator. We expect to be in free cash flow almost immediately once we're running the good stuff. With this kind of mill, there's no acid, there's no cyanide. It's very ESG friendly. But we can start it up and get turning once everything's calibrated almost immediately. So the free cash flow plus what we're doing up in Idaho should start very soon.
Okay. 2 questions from Davis Getty. One, is the Washington collar bolting netting going on now? And if not, when does it begin and end? And is it ready for extraction of ore to begin?
Mother Nature sometimes has a funny way of getting even. There was a late, deep snowfall up in that part of Idaho. So we had the road cleared, then it snowed again. So we're going to wait for the snow to melt, and then we'll get in there to do that kind of work. You know, it was safe in the 1930s, but safety standards have changed. So we're going to bring it up to code. And the second part of his question was about the ore?
Yes, ready for extraction.
Yep, send in the contract miner. We don't have to go looking for the ore. We are at the vein face because the prior group that worked it in the 1930s left all that silver there. They chased the gold and left the silver, and were kind enough to leave maps and descriptions of exactly what's there and where it is. So it's about 30 feet inside the attic.
Wow. When is the Geo team going to look at black copper?
Black copper is part of the entire property, which is called Black Diamond down in Arizona. Black copper is interesting for its copper content. They pulled a 30% copper sample out of there some years ago. So there will be some surface work being done, and black copper will be looked at in the near future. I don't have an exact timeline for you.
Steve Briggs congratulates you on the OTC listing and thanks you for being an
Say that again, Anna. Say that again.
Tongue-tied. Congratulations on the OTC listing and for being an audited company. Steve says, I know it's newly traded here, but with a bid ask of 2/3 spread, it's a bit of a deterrent. Do you think this will change?
All share prices have a life of their own. You can hire a market maker, that's $6,000 a month. We haven't had to really defend the bid so far. We moved on the first day of trading, we moved about 1 million to 1.5 million shares. And since then, it's just been steady buy, sell, buy, sell. Part of the problem is there aren't enough sellers. People believe in the story and they're waiting for production to start. I personally believe the stock will re-rate about 10 to 15 cents once we announce we're in actual production. And then when we put out the first quarterly news with how much we produced at what grade, one would expect the stock to re-rate then on new data.
And Maria O'Brien wants you to talk about your team and the experience they have.
Well, let me start with our CFO, who's 73 years old, and I think he invented accounting. Brian is a value-add CFO who does all the stock exchange filings. He helps me draft the information circulars. Like, we don't like sending this stuff to the lawyers. We'll do it ourselves in-house and get it done right the first time. So Brian Crawford, high-quality CFO. John Carter, our CEO, is 68. Lives in Oakville. He's been doing processing his whole life. This is what he knows. He's the perfect person for this role. One of our directors is Ron Wartell. He's a PEng. He's been very useful in helping us, guiding our thinking and how to build the mill, what to do with the rocks, and how to explore it. Also on the board is Ron Murphy, a geologist who lives in Arizona, right near Globe. He also runs a mining safety school. So I worked for 3 years in a mine, putting myself through law school. Safety, safety, safety. It's what they preach all the time, and you need somebody like that. Ron is our guy. A funny side note, I have a geek friend who sells safety footwear. We were out for dinner last week, and she was making comments about when I go to site, I'm going to need metatarsal protection. Right? What's that? So I immediately called Ron, and he immediately knew the answer about when you need metatarsal and when you don't. So very happy to have him on the team. We have Eric Baylog, who's helping with capital markets. He's been doing that for 10 years. And Birks Bovaird, the chair of Energy Fuels, a quaint little company that trades on the NASDAQ at around a $2 billion market cap with $140 million in its treasury. Birks has been wonderful. He brings a certain gravitas to the board. He's happy to engage with healthy conflict. People generally deter to him because he's generally right. And I'm really happy having him in the deal. I was called to the bar in 1990. I've been doing public markets since 1992. I'm a shareholder rights activist because I have a funny theory that the shareholders actually own the company and that they deserve the best possible. So it's a great team to work with. We've been having a lot of fun. Our board meetings are healthy conflict. They're almost like family dinners where people get to have different ideas. Defend your position. Why do you want to do this? Let's not do that. But at the end of every meal, at the end of every board meeting, everybody's friends. It was done the right way, and we go on to the next project.
Healthy conflict. I like that.
I love healthy conflict. I'm Italian. I love healthy conflict.
Right. Angela Turner asks for you to hash out a little bit more about your history. What successful projects or mines prior to this event have you worked on, even if it's in other metals?
I helped put the Baja mine into production in Mexico. Then CoRes took that over, and they did not do a good job on it. It was shut down for COVID, but we had 3,000 employees there up in Santa Rosalia. So a very serious major mine, and that would be the largest one.
Flora Kelly wants to know, what can you generate in the next 12 to 24 months, and what will your margins be?
Again, no PEA, no feasibility study, so I'm not allowed to tell you, but I can walk you through an exercise. I did math for my own. I got into this deal in April of 2020 when John asked me to help him. I did my own math. The mill is plated for 125 tons a day. So I assume it runs at 80% of that, which gets us to 100 tons a day. Sounds like a lot? It's nothing. The ships that we send to India with iron ore in it for processing, each ship contains 100,000 tons. So processing 100 tons a day is nothing. I assume 300 producing days a year. That gives me 5 or 6 days every month for normal repairs and maintenance. If you read the financial statements for the companies around us, their costs seem to average between $10 and $15 an ounce. The problem is there's no pure silver mine in the area. It's all copper and gold, so the cost structure will be different. And they're all very large companies. Freeport Mac, that's the company with the open pit next to us, and Rio Tinto, they run things differently from how we run things. We are horrifically cheap. We poured our own cement pad for the mill site, and it cost us 1/3 of what it would have cost to hire a contractor to do it. Right? Freeport Mac would have just said, hire a guy, get it done. We don't do that. We're really cheap. So I'm expecting our cost to be the lower end of that scale. As for grade, if you pull the press releases, you see the grade that's been coming out of there. The last press release we put out took 44 samples, 5 from over there, blended 39 of them together and averaged them out, and that came out to 24 ounces per ton. And you'll recall that Bonanza silver starts at 30 ounces per ton. So if you want to round it down and use 20, the math would be 100 tons a day times 300 days times 20 ounces of silver times whatever the net margin is depending on the price of silver. And that gets you to whatever, it gets you to a number. Now, Scotiabank 3 weeks ago put out its report on producing silver companies. And they looked at multiples of cash flow. The lowest was 12 times, the highest was 29. There's no way I'm using 29 times, there's no way I'm using 12. For my internal math, I use 7 times as a multiple. Then I add about a $10 million bump for exploration upside at the McMorris and at the Washington, and that's your valuation.
You must have been good at math in school. That was a great valuation.
First degree was computer science.
Awesome. Good for you. Alan Williams asks, are you using any proprietary tech or process for production, or are you just doing it traditionally?
More or less traditionally. I know John has tweaked the mill in his Sepro. The Sepro is that map of all the little mine parts you see, formerly called a Sepro. I know John has tweaked some things, but I don't think we have anything proprietary. What I am proud of, though, is the ESG component. No acid, no cyanide, no leaching. It's all gravity. Even the part we're installing to take the copper out is a frother with the environmentally friendly reagent. So I'm not worried about the tailings.
Okay. Arnold Morris wants to know, how is the company capitalized? Are there any concerns about cash flow or burn?
I worry about cash flow and burn every day. I call the CFO, then I call Burks, the chair, and we complain about it. Then we call John and complain about it. We're aware of it every single day. Concerned in the sense, are we going to run out of cash? No, we just did a good raise. We have money in the bank. But it's on our minds every day. What if the worst happens? What are we going to do? I'm a big fan of disaster planning.
Well, we need to be in today's world. Another question about that from Gina Garza. Once you are cash flow positive, what's next? What's on the horizon?
You take a certain amount of each check and you put it in a box for a rainy day fund. Whether you buy T-bills or whatever with it, every check goes, a little bit goes over there. The money will be reinvested to get the McMorris in production. So first the Buckeye, because it's the easiest, then the Washington up in Idaho, then explore the McMorris. And after that, probably the Silver 7, but I don't know for sure. But okay. At that point, we'll be taken out. I can't see us having 3 mines in production, and an intermediate doesn't take us out.
Ed Freeman asks if there's been any research or analysis or reports. If so, where could he find them?
At our website, we've made available all of the historical information. Our 43-101, it's a work report, not a resource estimate, from January of 21, as well as all the videos, drone footage of the site, and one video I really encourage you to watch called The Treasure Room. The Treasure Room is historically insane numbers for gold, silver, and copper. Just insane. First time I read them, I thought they were typos. In behind the Treasure Room, there's a historical report of drilling that gummed up the drill. When they pulled the drill out, it had drilled into solid silver. Silver is easy to heat. The friction from the drill melted the silver and gummed up the drill. About 6 weeks ago, the Murphy family, I mentioned Ron who's on our board, broke into the treasure room. It hasn't been seen since 1873, because with silver at 70 cents, who wanted to break in there? So there's a video on our website of Ron and Dan and his team breaking in, and it's joyous. It's like 12-year-old boys finding their first Playboy magazine. They broke into the treasure room, right? And they're 60, 70-year-old men, and they're excited and they're giddy. So it's a bit of joy in an otherwise dreary day. Go take a look at the treasure room.
Okay, I certainly will. Ron Van Elk wants you to talk a little bit about the copper circuit to the mill.
So it's not a circuit because, as CEO John tells me, a circuit implies acid. It's a copper cell. So we're not cycling any acid in there at all.
Okay.
2 years ago, a mine in the area went bankrupt because its owner died. Our CEO, with foresight, bought all the remnants of that mine. Every existing mine has what's called a laydown yard. You and I call it the garage or the attic. It's where you stuff stuff. Turns out that part of what John bought was 3 cells. So we can bolt on a copper cell first. You run the material through that to extract the copper. And then you take the material after it's been through the copper cell and you run that through the part of the mill that recovers the gold and the silver. You want to get the copper out first because otherwise it steals some of the silver. And then our tailings would be richer than most mines in the area. You don't want that to happen.
All right.
So if you wanted much more description, a better description of the cell itself, I can introduce you to John and he will tell you about the cell all day long.
Okay. Davis Getty wants a question. How far is the mill from the Buckeye and or from the Black Diamond property?
Well, both of them are on the Black Diamond property. The mill is on patented lands, which means we own it 100% the way you own your house. And I think it's an 8 miles as the crow flies, but a 12-mile drive to go around a little hill.
And a follow-up question from David. Does the company have good relationships with the people in the area? Are there any endangered species of flora, fauna on the property?
No, a fire swept through here about 3 years ago and burned everything away, which is good for us because there's no fuel left for a new fire. Ron and his brother Dan live in the area. They work in the area. They run the mining school in the area. They shop in the area. So yeah, we have good relations with locals. And we make it a point to always treat our local communities well.
Well, Peter, this was a fascinating presentation. Thank you so much. And please join us again. We look forward to hearing your updates. When
we have it in production, we'll come back and do this again. And then I can give you numbers.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, stay with us. We're coming right back.